I want to offer just some closing thoughts in an attempt to try to put the different things that have taken place in these last few moments in perspective. And Barbara, I hope that you and Jeff and Bill and Susan, Doug and David feel the love that is surrounding this room and the respect that this group of people has for your dad and for your husband. I don't attempt at all other than to say thank you for being here. I don't attempt at all to rewrite why you're here or perhaps even to recreate memories for you. My task is actually very straightforward, and that is I just want to provide you a passage of Scripture within which you might be able to place your memories and your thoughts. And maybe this passage of Scripture will come back to you over the weeks and the months ahead. And as you think something about Bill, that you'll be able to go back to this Scripture passage and go, oh yeah, that is him. That's how I see him. I don't want to change your memories with this passage. I just want this passage to amplify those. I have many memories of my own. Not the least of which is that every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock, after I had just seen Bill 2 hours earlier, I would receive a phone call, usually before I got home, so I would hear it on the answering machine. And it always began this way, as though he'd forgotten that he'd called me. Alan, Bill Shields here. Just wanted to make sure you're going to join us for lunch tomorrow. We'll save you a seat anyway. Usually then I would call Bill back and joke and ask who else was going to be there, because that was going to determine whether I chose to show up or not. But that was every Wednesday night. He invited me to his lunch group. Laurie and I will always remember driving past the Shields house, as Jordan mentioned it on Sunday afternoons. When we moved here, we lived just a few doors down from Bill and Barbara, and Jordan did not exaggerate. They packed the entire neighborhood. We had just moved from Texas, so when we moved here, we would just drive by the house and whistle and hum the theme from the old TV show Dallas, because that's what it felt like to us. It was South Fork Ranch all over again. And I know those are your treasures, and what an incredible keepsake to hang on to. Don't ever forget those. As long as God gives you the gift of memory, hang on to those. I mean, who else could create memory? I mean, think about it. You can go back now to South Fork Ranch and see him on that green piece of furniture, right? And you can hear the sounds and smell the smells and laugh in the moment. And so can all of us gather in on that, because you have your own memories of Bill, and God's given us this incredible gift to take us right back to that moment of encounter we had with him. What an incredible thing God gives us. So hang on to those. And if you want to know a way to honor him, then remember those memories. It is perhaps God's greatest gift that he gives you in this moment. I want to offer this scripture. It is a story about a physician. We know him as Jesus Christ, the great physician. But it's one of his physician roles. And I read it to you. It comes out of one of the Gospels, the Gospel of Mark. And it reads this way: a large crowd followed and pressed around Jesus. A woman who had been subject to bleeding for about 12 years was there. She had suffered a great deal under many doctors, had spent every dime she had, but instead she never got better. But when she heard about Jesus, this physician, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought to herself, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him, so he turned around in the crowd and he asked, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples responded, "What do you mean asking that? You see all the people gathered around you. Everybody's bumping up against you. How can you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. And then this woman, She came and fell at his feet and said, I did. I'm the one who touched you. I knew you could heal me. And he turned to her and said, Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. The primary standard by which we Christians are to measure ourselves, we are told, is our Christ-likeness, how much we are like him. I want to offer you, as briefly as I can, just a few of my own perspectives of the way that Bill, in ways, manifested those Christ-like qualities. And I draw them out of this story because it parallels, in my mind, so many ways that Bill did that. And one of the ways that Bill, from my perspective, managed to show himself as that kind of physician was that people reached out to Bill because they trusted his wisdom. Now, Skip has already alluded to that as his being a great doctor, but people reached out to him because they trusted him. They trusted his ability to be a physician. This lady approached Jesus because she trusted him. She trusted that his knowledge was immense. She believed that Jesus had the capability of making a difference. I won't read to you the different pieces of the obituary, but you read them and you know the story and you know of all of his degrees and all of his medical history and of his forming this partnership that grew into what we now know as HIMG and how he was such an integral part of that relationship. People knew Bill as a very wise and competent physician. They trusted his knowledge. That is one of the reasons that every time I saw Bill, I would usually say to him, Bill, do you know any good physicians? And he would respond back, no, never met one. But we could only joke like that because he was one. It was such a good doctor. And I had that honor of joining him for lunch. They met, and several of them are pallbearers this afternoon, but they met every week. I was able to make it about every third week. As I told them, one of us had to work, and I would make it occasionally. And up until Bill's illness, which there were many weeks where Bill would order and couldn't remember the order. But do you know that he could talk medicine as though he had just walked across the stage to get his diploma? I always accused him of using words that I didn't understand just so that he could prove that to me, but he was such an incredible, competent physician. And one of the qualities that he had that in this way is Christ-like was that people reached out to him because they trusted what he knew. They trusted his wisdom. But Bill was bigger than just being a physician. I hope that somewhere along the line your path crossed with some of his one-liners. I hope they did. Skip mentioned one of them, and Jordan mentioned several of them. But he was almost kind of a wise saying kind of person. And I remember those, and I still laugh when I think about them. But it's kind of his way of viewing life. But you trusted that, and you reached out for more of those because you trusted him with them. Bill would say, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. And you know that was part of Bill's life. Bill would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spots back here for worship. And Bill sometimes was here, 2 hours before worship. And he did have every hymn marked. And he was always early. I'm told that he made his hospital rounds early in the morning. That went noticed. But what people didn't understand was that he did that so that he didn't make you as a patient late. I know some people that intentionally had their appointments with Bill early in the morning, and they would get there early because they knew that he would be early, and he would come out into the waiting room and call them back. But you know why he did that? It was all about his compassion for people. If there is a word that describes Bill Shields to me, it is his compassion. He was always home, I understand, at 5 o'clock for dinner. It was the family time. He always expected everybody to be on time. T-minus so many seconds, and you were missing vacation. Always on time, always wise. A perspective on life. I love his stories. one of my favorite sayings of Bill Shields, and it's not one that all of us can grasp, but imagine this, a man who got up so early to make sure he got home by 5. One of his sayings to his children and to me, he said often, Alan, always make time, and you know what I'm going to say, always make time for fun. Bill played golf every Wednesday. There was a little bit of a debate going on in the hospice house how many weeks in a row he played. So the family was kind of arguing over this, and I think every kid had a different week in mind as to what his magic number was, not really knowing if Bill was actually part of listening to the conversation or not. But one of them leaned over and said, Dad, how many weeks in a row did you play? And he held up fingers. And someone said, 52. And he held them up again. And so they kept guessing, and he kept holding them up. 50, by the way, just for the record, 57 weeks in a row without missing one. But it was because he said, always have time for fun. His view of golf was such that he would say on the course, if you don't like your lie, change it. And his suggestion was on the rules of golf is that they're really not a rule. The rules of golf are merely a suggestion.